Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm 𝗂𝗄𝗃𝗲 and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to the podcast to get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's show, it is my real joy to speak with Danielle Lindblom. Danielle, you are an adventurer, a badass, and a life coach. You are a highly sensitive person and you live with anxiety and depression. You say it relates to your personal growth. Your passion as a coach is to guide people to their own truth and authenticity by connecting to their body and learning to accept all the parts of themselves. Danielle, I'm delighted to have you with me today.
I am so happy to be here. We've had a lot of fun already before we even started.
No, this is fantastic because sometimes with a conversation you need some warming up. So because we had the opportunity to warm up, now it is we're already 10-15 minutes ahead in terms of this kind of feeling than most conversations. Danielle, I want you to start sharing with us some elements of your story that are relevant to this message and this calling that you have in life. So do you want to share one or two key defining moments that took you from where you were and transformed you to where you are today, so we can get an understanding?
Absolutely. On the subject of personal development, I feel like that's been my entire life. I've been naturally a very driven, passionate person. And in the first part of my life, that translated to academics, to competitive sports, to career. I really sort of pushed the envelope and tried to better myself in order to better my career. The two defining moments that immediately came up when you asked the question were this. One was in my 20s, early 20s, when I first started getting anxiety. I've since learned that's pretty typical for anxiety to develop or to present itself in your early 20s. For a lot of people, it's not something that's been there their whole life. And at the time, I was in Vermont working a pretty, high strategic leadership type position, lots of prestige, and it knocked me flat. It really affected my day-to-day job. It got to the point where, and there were multiple stressors going on at this time. And I thought, boy, I'm just not handling the stress well. I didn't know anything about mental health. I didn't know that I was even having anxiety. Mm-hmm. I just thought, wow, I'm not handling the stress well. And it got to the point where I ended up taking a full week off of work, emailing my boss to say, I can't come in because the pressure of my job was really getting to me. Mm-hmm. It culminated in an event that I was supposed to be co-leading, and I couldn't even make myself go. So in a last-ditch effort to try to find relief, I emailed my boss and said, I can't come in this week. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what reason I gave, but I had the most incredible boss, I think, of my entire career. Super understanding, and just said, I can tell you're going through something. Please know I'm here for whatever you might need. Take care of yourself and get back to me when you're able to. That was a really pivotal turning point for me, because that's when I really had to face it. I think it's so easy for us, regardless of whether it might be a mental health issue, a physical issue, when we push and push and push and we try to push through it or push past it, at some point our body or our mind puts on the brakes. Mm-hmm. and no amount of willpower is going to keep you going. And that was my moment where I had to really face like, okay, this is a thing. It behooves me to try to understand it because it seems like it's not going away no matter how hard I try.
Danielle, can I ask you to, I want you to clarify for me. You say this anxiety that you could, you faced it. How would it manifest? So how would you feel? What was the symptom, if I can use this word?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great point that I've lived with it for so long. I forget that not everybody knows what it's like.
Yeah.
And it's a word that's thrown around a lot nowadays, which is good. Like I want more awareness of mental health issues like anxiety and depression. But it might not be well understood by everyone. So the physical sensations I would get were associated with dread. I was supposed to be leading groups of people in week-long events at my job, groups of people that came from different parts of the business, so diverse, cross-functional. And it required me to organize this event, to stand in front of people and lead it, to be present for the entire thing, to help people through it as they went through their own adaptations to change and their own reactions to change.
Yeah.
And for me, it just became this deep feeling of dread. I was actually getting physically ill in that, like, I was very nauseous. It felt like my entire body was tense all the time. Like all of my muscles were tense, very short of breath. I wasn't breathing. Anxiety comes from a fight or flight response in the body. And for me, it was flight and a bit of freeze, where I wanted to run away. I wanted to hide. I wanted to get away from the thing that was triggering me. And that was the pressure that I felt of expectation. Like, you need to be present. You need to be leading this. I didn't feel like I had space to take a break, manage myself, or to take time and space for me or whatever I might need. And that just created a feeling of being trapped. Like, I'm going to be trapped in this event. I'm not going to have any opportunity to take care of myself. Like, I have to be there. And, racing heart, very nauseous and ill feeling. My whole body is tight and tense. Yeah.
I think I understand it. So take us back then to that week that you had to face all that and realize that you need to do something about it because it doesn't go away, as you were saying.
It was so interesting because I was this ambitious, driven young person. And as a lot of young people do, I was very, very caught up in pleasing others and performing well. I wanted to do well. I wanted people to be satisfied with me. And it's so interesting that when that week came, I finally pushed past the shame and the guilt that I felt for requesting time off. Like, it had reached such a point that not even my feelings of shame and guilt, like, how dare you take a week off? You're not actually sick. This is all in your head. You need to go to work. Couldn't overcome the feelings I was having. So when I think of that week, I don't even remember much of what I did because I think it was just me coming to terms. It was me learning acceptance. There was a lot of rest. I know I talked to my parents a lot, trying to understand what was going on. And it was just taking time for me. I think it also led to some decisions because I realized, like, I can't keep doing this. It's reached this point. What am I going to do when I go back? Right? I'm going to have to go back, next Monday. And what am I going to do? Like, it was this realization that this isn't something I can push past or push through. And what's interesting is I didn't even consider asking for help. That wasn't even on my radar. I talked to my parents, and they also kind of thought that it was stress. And they encouraged me to move back to Minnesota, which is my home state.
Yeah.
Where they could be more physically present, where they could provide more support, and we would figure this out together. So what happened after that is I started looking casually at jobs in Minnesota, and then very quickly, like bim, bam, boom, once I applied to something, the process went really fast. I had a kick-ass resume. I was very in demand. All of that passion and drive like made me very desirable. So I got a job very quickly. And in my mind, I thought that would fix it. I thought it's just this job. It's just this environment. It's this industry. It's this company. So I took a job in a different industry with a different company, thinking that would fix it. Spoiler alert, it didn't.
I want to ask you, carry on a little bit further, and I want to see when did the change happen, because I completely can relate with what you were saying, trying a different job or trying different things. I think many people would go for that approach first, because we are indeed not well informed about mental health and what it is, and we are even afraid of speaking to others. You said that you didn't even think of asking for help. I think many people would be in a similar situation. So when was that point that things changed for you, or did you that you asked for help, that you actually started dealing with it?
Oh, that sits really heavy in my body, because things had to get worse before they got better. You know, when I said changing industries and changing jobs and changing companies didn't fix it, it did get worse. I had other external stressors come in. Life happens. I had multiple big stressful events kind of stack. The death of my grandmother, being very new in my job and not feeling supported by my manager at that time for taking bereavement. It felt, guilt and shame 3 weeks into a new job to say I need to take bereavement. I just felt pressure and expectation. And then I had a very large, significant in-person fight with my mother. And all of these things, the stress of starting a new position and trying to find my place there, it culminated in thoughts of suicide. And that terrified me. I had never thought about taking my own life. And it was in a moment of extreme distress. In hindsight, very normal to just be that upset. And like at the time I thought about driving my car off the road. Sort of like that'll show her type thing. And the thought shocked me, just the fact that I had the thought. Like I never would have acted on it, but I'd never had a thought like that before. So that was finally the point that I reached out for help. And what's interesting is I didn't do it then. I sat on that for 2 months, didn't tell a single soul. And it finally came out at a family gathering where I told my mother, under the influence of alcohol. Like it took quite a lot to crack me open and say, hey, this happened and I don't know what to do and I'm scared. And she prompted me to go seek therapy. And that was the point where I finally started to understand what was going on with me, where it was coming from, the stress, the anxiety, the high sensitivity. And that was a huge turning point. Like as soon as I started receiving help from a professional who deals with this all the time, it started to normalize my experience. What I find in so many people, myself included, is we think we are the only one feeling these feelings or having these experiences or having these thoughts. And it's so not true. There's so many people going through or have gone through the exact same thing. And it wasn't until I started getting evidence of that and like talking with someone that it was easier to accept when it became normalized.
Danielle, why do you think that people, or in your particular case yourself, didn't reach out for help earlier? Was there some kind of resistance, or was it just ignorance?
Both. I think for me it was more weighted towards ignorance than resistance. it's very interesting. I have so much more depth of knowledge now, several years down the path of self-development and life coach training and experience, to see that it really came down to self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So resistance came in, not resistance to seeking help, but resistance to resistance to my problem. I didn't want to admit that it was even there. I wanted to push back against these feelings. I wanted to live in denial that I had a problem. And it would swing back and forth from I'm fine, or I should be able to just deal with this, it's stress, to what if there is something really wrong with me, and being terrified to say that out loud. Even because you have to say that to yourself before you will take the step to ask help.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't think there's a problem, you won't reach out for help.
Of course. So from what you know now about this topic, when is the good time for someone to reach out and ask for help? How will they know that it's time now? It's not just me. It's beyond what is normal, or considered acceptable.
That is such a magical point that you just inadvertently made. This word normal is actually what was the stem of all of my resistance, right? Is this normal? Is this abnormal? Am I normal? Am I abnormal? Is this normal, or do I have a problem? And that created all of the resistance. And what I would tell people now is